I'm Ben Greenman. I'm tonight's MC. I'll be back with you in a moment to continue the festivities, but first I want to introduce tonight's host, the director of the MFA in Creative Writing programs here at the New School, Luis Jaramillo. So please give him a round of applause.
Thanks so much, Ben, and thank you all for coming. We're so honored to be able to host this award ceremony tonight here at the New School and to help celebrate the brave, challenging, and inspiring works of the many writers on the program. At the little event before this ceremony, I ran into Antonio Aiello, who's on Penn staff and is an MFA alumnus, and he said that writers, especially the writers that we're interested in, are the eyes and ears of the culture, and so that's another thing that we're celebrating tonight. At the New School, I'd like to thank Gregory Collins, Brian Case, and Lori Lynn Turner. I'd also like to thank our partners at Penn, including Suzanne Nossel, Ariel Anema, and Paul Morris. And lastly, I'd like to thank the Penn Board and Penn President, Peter Godwin. Please join me in welcoming Peter Godwin to the stage.
Good evening, and welcome to PEN America's annual Literary Awards ceremony. Just to reiterate, as we're preserving this ceremony in the electronic amber that is the World Wide Web, please turn off all your electronic devices, unless you have pacemakers, perhaps you can keep those on. We're very lucky tonight to have Ben Greenman as our Master of Ceremonies, as well as a distinguished group of presenters who represent the range of Penn's literary community. Elizabeth Alexander, Barbara Kingsolver, Joseph O'Neill, Zadie Smith, Andrew Solomon, Elizabeth Streb, Natasha Wimmer, and Tiffany Yannick. Celebrating the written word is a crucial part of defending it, and the writers who create it. Thomas Mann maintained that it was easy to identify a writer. A writer, he said, is a person for whom writing is more difficult than it is for other people. It is through Penn's literary awards that we honor the most exceptional books that free expression makes possible. This year's winners include both emerging and established writers and cover a spectrum of genres. We're so grateful to our judges, themselves distinguished writers, editors, and translators, who've devoted hundreds of hours to reading, discussing, and selecting extraordinary work from a growing number of submissions. Penn is in the middle of an ambitious exercise to expand our awards program, masterminded by our energetic and dedicated Director of Awards, Paul Morris. This is our first year here at the New School, which has very kindly donated the use of this space, and we look forward to continuing this partnership. And after the success of the first Penn Awards shortlist last year, this year we introduced the Penn Longlist. And we're heartened by the response from publishers, booksellers, and most importantly, authors themselves. The long lists of more than 80 titles in all allowed us to bring increased recognition to these books. These include a media partnership with Salon.com, regular web features, social media campaigns, and special satellite events, such as the one held in midsummer to celebrate our judges, and the one last night at the KGB bar a few blocks away, featuring readings from the 5 finalists for this year's Penn Robert W. Bingham Prize for Debut Fiction. And tonight we're doing something else new. We're announcing the winner of that award live, an opportunity that has allowed us to promote these 5 debut fiction writers over the last few weeks with excerpts, interviews, and audio recordings, which you can access on penn.org. We're also bringing forward our 2015 awards ceremony to the first half of the next calendar year, and we will make long and shortlist announcements in the spring. And finally, we're excited to introduce a brand new award this year, the Penn Fusion Emerging Writers Prize, with a purse of $10,000, which will go to a writer under the age of 35 for an unpublished nonfiction manuscript that addresses a global and/or multicultural issue. This award is in partnership with our friends at Univision, who have joined us here tonight. We're so grateful for their support. The Penn Fusion Prize comes at a time when Penn's own membership is becoming increasingly diverse. Penn is a growing community, and we are fortunate to benefit from so many of our member committees that have helped lead us to this night. We'd like to quickly thank the Literary Awards, the Children's Book and Translation Committees for their dedication in securing such able judges, and a special thanks to Alice Quinn, the chair of the Literary Awards Committee, who runs it with such energy, grace, and above all, tact. Thanks again to all of you for being here, and thank you for caring about new writing and for continuing to read it, thus helping to secure its survival. Because, as John Cheever said, writing is like kissing. You can't do it alone. And now, onto the ceremony. Please welcome back to the microphone Ben Greenman.
Thank you, Peter. A few weeks ago at another event, I was leaving a bookstore and I saw the hardback of Günter Grass's The Flounder. And though I was pretty sure I had it already in some form, I got it again. For the cover art alone, there's a big picture of a fish and then a big picture of an ear to receive the words of the fish. And since then, I've been going through some of Grass's work and thinking about it, from the praise novels to the condemned political poetry. And I was especially drawn as I looked around to his Nobel address from 1999. In it, he talks about how writers have an obligation, in a way, to be controversial, to speak out, how that's a burden but also a responsibility. And then on a more personal note, he talks a lot about how much of his writing, in fact, all of it, was rooted in reading. I thought about that a lot in the days leading up to this ceremony, because as much as we're celebrating writers tonight, they wouldn't circulate through the world without readers. And it makes sense in a way to think of awards as a special class of reading. He also makes it clear that writing and reading are by no means frictionless experiences. And he talks about how as a child, he had to read with his fingers in his ears because there was so much clamor in his house and he couldn't, it was the only way he had to get into the world of the book is by blocking out the world around it. That was also a suggestive image for tonight, because much of the way we cover writers, I think here in America, focuses on their internal struggles, the creative choices they make, the rooms of one's own, that type of thing. Organizations like Penn help us to remember also that there's a world outside of those writers, and to remind us that for many writers around the world, the distractions come from the external world and the challenges. Writers are pressured, they're ostracized, they're threatened, but they persist, and their persistence gives us words to read and words to learn from. We should pay literature the ultimate respect, which is one of the things we're doing here tonight. We should preserve it always and in all ways. That's Penn's goal, to elevate literature by making it more visible and by always helping it rise into view. As Peter mentioned, tonight we're going to be paying this respect by giving awards to a variety of writers in a variety of genres. One of the awards, the Bingham Award for Debut Fiction, will operate on the time-honored principle of suspense. We have nominees, but we have no winner yet, and right now accountants are busily, there's really no accountants, but they're busily tabulating the results in a room, and they're going to put them in a locked briefcase and rush them over here, and then we will know. I wanted to start with another contest. Though I asked everyone to turn off their devices, earlier this month, Penn ran a contest by way of those devices. They invited people online through the devil that we can call Twitter to imagine a title of a novel 100 years from now, in the year 2114, that might be nominated for one of the prizes, and to give it a title and a brief summary. And through that, I guess, to imagine what will be the place of literature 100 years from now, and its status and its challenges. We called it Future Fiction of America. It was named not after the famed youth organization Future Farmers of America, but rather the Lou Reed song of the same name. So, just to be clear, not Future Farmers of America, the organization, but yes, it was named after the song. So we looked through all the submissions that we received and we selected a winner. Most of the people who submitted were futuristic because it's in the future. Some of them imagined what would happen after a century of climate change denial. One of the suggested titles was The Island of Dr. Godot, and the description for that was, on the Earth's last piece of dry land, 2 beach bums waited out. That wasn't a winner. Not that it wasn't also good, it just, I'm giving you a flavor of the set. Others went for plot and kind of mashup aesthetics. There was a submission where the title was Malcolm X, and the description for that was, set in 1865, this Weird West tale follows a newly freed yet dishonorably discharged black man's gunslinging adventures. So if you would like to option either of those tweets for film or television, you can look on Twitter and find the people who did them. We labored over the winner, and finally we selected one. And the winning entry of the Future Fiction of America competition, the debut one, is, and here is the title, 1001100111101. And it was described as the first AI-generated novel for robots. A CPU-warming tale, self-flying drone falls for OS, and sparks fly. So look for it in 100 years. We hired a robot to convert the title, which I'm not going to repeat. You heard it. It's a bunch of ones and zeros. From binary over to decimal. It turns out it's 4925. I don't know if the person who submitted that was translating back. It's the number of the gene that encodes a protein with a suggested role in calcium level maintenance. Don't know if that has anything to do with it, but maybe, maybe not. So at any rate, the tweeter / future author of that book, Andrew Lloyd Jones, will win an autographed set of books from tonight's Penn Bingham finalists. So please give a brief round of applause to Andrew Lloyd Jones. One more thing about tonight's award winners. We have many deserving awardees tonight, and we've asked them, I've been asked to ask them, or they've been asked, and then I will ask them again, to limit their remarks to 90 seconds to pay tribute to Penn's own history. The organization turns 93 years old this year, I believe. So we've rounded down slightly. If remarks creep up to 100 seconds, 110 seconds, fine. If remarks exceed 20 minutes, you can use your own discretion in indicating that to the awardees. I don't think it'll be a problem, but at around 20 minutes, feel free to express your displeasure. So let's get on with tonight's show. Tonight's first presenter is Natasha Wimmer, who has done and will do many things, but is currently best known as the translator who brought Roberto Bolaño to the English-speaking world. So please welcome her to the stage for the evening's first set of awards.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's an honor to be here tonight. Penn provides a real home for translators and literature and translation, and that is really much appreciated. We begin the evening with the Penn, Edward, and Lily Tuck Award for Paraguayan Literature, awarded to a living author of a major work of Paraguayan literature not yet translated into English. The award is made possible by Edward and Lily Tuck, and we're fortunate to have Lily in the audience tonight. Please give her a round of applause. I'd also like to recognize the judges, Idra Novi, Yvette Siegert, and Mark Statman. The winner of this year's Penn, Edward, and Lily Tuck Award is Raul Silva Alonso for Entacumbu, a remarkable collection of microfiction set in a prison in the Paraguayan capital of Asunción. As the judges report, the stories are unpredictable, vivid, and radically unlike anything else being written in Paraguay. Raul Silva Alonso, will you come and accept your award?
¿Hay alguien que habla español acá? Entonces voy a dar mi discurso para ellos en español y mi hija va a ser mi traductora, lo va a hacer en inglés luego. Es sumamente grato recibir un premio por un libro en cuyas páginas se manifiesta uno de los objetivos del PEN, que es actuar como una voz potente en nombre de escritores asediados, encarcelados o asesinados por sus posturas. Esta noche, gracias a la generosidad de Edward y Lily Tuck, que instituyeron con el Pen Club el premio que me trajo aquí, recibo más que un premio. New York, la Gran Manzana, era una asignatura pendiente para mí. Y aunque nuestra estadía va a ser brevísima, nunca se me había ocurrido pensar que la cumpliría en una circunstancia tan honrosa como esta, rodeado de personas sobresalientes en el mundo de la literatura, escritores y artistas de varias partes del mundo. Esta oportunidad me parece propicia para resaltar la novela de Lily, The News from Paraguay, ganadora del National Book Award en 2004, que he leído con sumo interés y a veces con sentimientos encontrados. Los personajes son reales y el tiempo, el lugar, el entorno en que transcurren los hechos son históricos y narrados en una forma tan excelente que atrapa al lector desde la primera página. A través de su libro dio a conocer la tremenda guerra que tuvo que vivir el Paraguay a fines de 1800 con 3 países y que casi 150 años después se siguen sintiendo las consecuencias. Me parece de justicia mencionar esta novela y a su autora por un doble motivo, porque su libro habla de mi país y por estar aquí gracias a ese miembro del PEN cuyo nombre figura como el mío propio junto con lo más granado de la literatura contemporánea, y es quien tuvo la generosidad de gestionar y financiar este premio que el jurado me ha concedido y me honro en recibir. Thank you. Gracias.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is highly rewarding to receive a prize for a book whose pages express the same goals of PEN, to act as a powerful voice on behalf of writers that have been harassed, imprisoned, or killed for their views. Tonight, thanks to the generosity of Edward and Lily Tuck, who, along with the PEN Club, institute the prize that brought me here, I am receiving more than a prize. New York, the Big Apple, was my personal pending issue. Even though our stay will be very brief, it had never occurred to me that it would be achieved in such an honorable circumstance, surrounded by outstanding people of the world of literature, writers and artists from all over the world. It seems a favorable opportunity to highlight Lily's novel, The News from Paraguay, winner of the National Book Award in 2004, which I read with great interest and sometimes with mixed feelings. Real characters move in the novel. The time, place, and setting in which the events occur are historical and told in such an excellent manner that grabs the reader from the first line. The awful feat that Paraguay lived against 3 countries was released with her book, a war that almost 150 years later, the country is still suffering the consequences. It seems only fair to mention this writer and her novel for 2 reasons. Because her book speaks of my country, and because I'm here thanks to this member of PEN, whose name appears, along with mine, as the cream of contemporary literature, and who was generous enough to manage and found this award that the jury has given me, and which I'm honored to receive. Thank you.
Our next prize is the PEN Award for Poetry in Translation for a book-length translation of poetry into English published in 2013. This award is made possible by the Kaplan Foundation, and the judge this year is Kimiko Han. The winners of the PEN Award for Poetry in Translation are Karen Emmerich and Edmund Keeley for Diaries of Exile by Yanis Ritsos. As Emmerich writes in her introduction to the volume, these poems, written while Ritsos was a political prisoner in late 1940s Greece, are part poem, part diary, part letter to the world. In Emmerich and Keeley's stellar translations, Han tells us, the poems are testament to an existence of harshness and hope. Karen Emmerich and Edmund Keeley, could you please come and receive your prize?
In honor of PEN's 93rd year and as a former president of the PEN American Center, I will talk for 45 seconds. First of all, I want to thank Karen Emmerich for having taught me how profitable it is to work with a gracious imaginative, and highly intelligent collaborator. Then I want to thank Jill Schoolman of Archipelago Books for her courage in having published our book, and Kimiko Han for having recognized that courage so generously. Finally, I want to express my special pleasure in seeing Yanis Ritsos receive the kind of recognition by a literary society here in America that was denied him for many years by established contemporaries of his in Greece because of his communism and his willingness to be forthright about his perception of both the beauty and the torment of his country. Thank you.
I also would like to thank PEN, which has supported my work as a translator since the very beginning, more or less. I was one of the 2005 recipients of the PEN Heim Translation Fund Award for another translation of Greek poetry by a poet, Miltos Aktouris. And the translation side of PEN is just an incredible, incredible resource for translators, and we need those resources, so I'm so grateful for this. And this award is one of those many ways in which it's supporting. Jill Schoolman at Archipelago Books has given herself fully and tirelessly to the project of publishing excellent works of literature and translation. My parents, endlessly loving and selfless in their support, have read and edited every book I've ever published. They are de facto experts in Greek literature, I would say, at this point. I also want to thank Dimitri Gondikas, who's the head of the Center for Hellenic Studies at Princeton University, who is one of the greatest behind-the-scenes supporter not only of this project in bringing myself and Professor Keeley together to work on it, but of modern Greek literature and culture in this country. And lastly, I thank Professor Keeley for being an inspiration to me, first through his translations, which I read when I was just a beginning learner of Greek at 17, and now as a generous and thoughtful collaborator, and as a true and constant model for me in my work. Thank you.
Now we come to the PEN Translation Prize for a book-length translation of prose into English published in 2013. The prize has been supported since 1963 in recognition of the art of the literary translator, the first American award to do so. The judges this year are Ann Goldstein, Becca McKay, and Catherine Silver. And the winners of the 2013 PEN Translation Prize are Joanne Turnbull and Nikolai Formasov for Autobiography of a Corpse by Sigismund Kierdzianowski, a collection of stories written in the Soviet Union in the 1920s and 30s, but unpublished until the first decade of this century. In the view of the judges, Joanne Turnbull, in collaboration with Nikolai Formasov, has produced a compellingly readable and inventive translation, insinuating a strangeness and beauty of other worlds. Joanne and Nikolai are not able to be here tonight, but Edwin Frank, the New York Review of Books Classics series editor, will accept the award on their behalf. Edwin, will you come to the podium?
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you to PEN. Joanne has a very few words she wanted me to convey, or very few thanks. She sends her heartfelt thanks to PEN and to the judges, Ann Goldstein, Becca McKay, and Catherine Silver, for honoring Kierdzianowski. It's something we'll all have to learn how to pronounce. I've been editing him for a while and still can't do it. She also thanks Robert Chandler, who's been a great supporter of Kierdzianowski. And Natasha Perova, the pioneering editor of Glass, the magazine and the publishing program in Moscow. And finally, to Dick and Jeanette Seaver, who introduced Joanne to translation. Thanks very much.
Next up are the PEN Heim Translation Fund grants. These are grants awarded to support the translation of book-length works of fiction, poetry, or drama that have not previously appeared in English or have appeared only in an outdated or otherwise flawed translation. This award, now in its 11th year, helps the recipients not only complete their work, but also find a publisher. And this year's recipients have already received many expressions of interest from publishers. Roughly 82% of past projects have either found a publisher or have completed their project with the assistance of these grants. This award is made possible by Priscilla and Michael Henry Heim. A brief side note here. Heim, who was a mentor and benefactor of many translators in this room and elsewhere, is the subject of a book out next month from Open Letter Press titled The Man Between, Michael Henry Heim and a Life in Translation, edited by Esther Allen, Sean Cotter, and Russell Scott Valentino. The members of the PEN Heim Translation Fund Advisory Board this year are Esther Allen, Barbara Epler, Sarah Khalili, Michael F. Moore, Lauren Stein, and Lauren Wine. And the winners of the 2013 PEN Heim Translation Fund grants are Kurt Beals, Eric M.B. Becker, David Burnett, Janet Hong, Paul Hoover, Andrea G. Labinger, Sergei Levkin, Zachary Luddington, J. Brett Manny, Philip Metras and Dmitry Sertev, Sayuri Okamoto, Benjamin Paloff, Miranda Richmond Muyo, Tom Satterley, and Shelley Walpe. The fund is also pleased to announce that its two nominees for 2014 New York State Council on the Arts Translation Grants received recognition for their projects, Edna McCown and Yvette Siegert. A number of the Translation Grant and Council of the Arts grant recipients are in the audience tonight. Will all of you please stand to be applauded?
Thank you, Natasha, and congratulations again to the honorees. The second group of awards tonight will be presented by Tiffany Yannick. Tiffany is a gifted writer whose work ranges across genres. She's written fiction, poetry, essays, and children's literature. One of her books was titled How to Escape from a Leper Colony. It's harder than you think. So please welcome Tiffany to the podium to present the next set of awards tonight.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here. I do want to remind everyone that all the books by all the authors here tonight are for sale. They're for sale tonight, right in the back. And you should buy the books tonight and get the authors to sign them. The PEN Phyllis Naylor Working Writer Fellowship is presented to an author of children's or young adult fiction to complete a book-length work in progress. The fellowship, established in 2001, is supported by an endowment fund established by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. And Phyllis Naylor is in the audience tonight. Let's give her a round of applause. The judges for this award are Kathy Appelt, Johanna Hurwitz, and Padma Vectranaman. The winner is Linda Oatman High for her manuscript, The Taste of Elephant Tears. We predict that her main character, an elephant named Queenie Grace, will be as loved by young readers as the elephants who preceded her in children's books. Linda's winning manuscript is available for publication. Linda?
Good evening. At every awards ceremony, there has to be one person who wakes up with laryngitis, and tonight I would be that person, but thankfully the voice has come back somewhat. So I'd like to say I'm really honored to be in this room with so many wonderful writers. I'd like to thank PEN and the judges. I'd like to thank my family, my friends, my ever-loyal friend Marty Crisp, the writing community at Vermont College, the MFA in Writing for Children and Young Adults program, the Highlights Foundation. So many people have encouraged me in this long, long journey. And I'd especially like to thank my family and my husband, John, the barn saver. John dismantled my grandparents' old barn last year. He tagged, blueprinted, and rebuilt it in the backyard of our house in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and it's now my writing studio. The Taste of Elephant Tears is the first thing I wrote in that barn. He gave me the barn for Christmas this past year. And I went into the barn, I talked to my Grammy and my pop-up, and I said, what should I write? And they said, in my head, write about an elephant. So I did, and here I am tonight. They say that an elephant never forgets. I'll never forget this. Thank you all so much.
The next award is the Penn Stephen Kroll Award for Picture Book Writing. It is for exceptional writing in an illustrated children's book. The award was established in memory of Stephen Kroll, a former Penn trustee and a longtime chair of Penn's Children's Young Adult Book Authors Committee, to acknowledge the distinct literary contributions of picture book writers. The award is made possible by Kathleen Beckett, and Kathleen is also in the audience. Let's give her a round of applause. The judges are Mac Barnett, Ted Lewin, and Elizabeth Winthrop, and the winner is Bill Lepp for The King of Little Things. Readers will delight in the comic rhythms and inspired vocabulary of this book. Bill?
Long ago and far away on the other side of the mountain, there lived a king. He was the king of little things. He was the king of keys, coins, crumbs, and condensation. He was the king of needles, noodles, knots, beetles, baby rattles. He was the king of toy soldiers, little ballerina dolls, pin cushions, pet names, and small kindnesses. That's how the book starts. It was inspired by my son. When he was 5 years old, he asked me, do you want to play kingdoms? And I agreed. We went behind the couch, and he got his things for his kingdom, the Tonka truck, dump truck, the Tonka truck, fire truck, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. He said, I'm going to be the king of big things. I said, what do I get to be king of? And he gave me a marble and a paper clip. And he said, you can be the king of little things. And I said, that's a great idea for a story. Play by yourself, Cats in the Cradle. And so it's been a long journey. When I started writing a long time ago, you know, it was back when you still had to send your SASE with your submission letter and then wait 6 to 8 weeks for the rejection letter. And I used to submit to the same places over and over. I just put an old submission letter in the SASE to save them trouble of putting a fresh rejection letter in there. Back then, you could only be disappointed once a day when you went to the mailbox. Now, and you had 23 hours and 55 minutes to hope, and now we can be discouraged anytime we open our inbox. So this is, to get from that to receiving this award, I have to thank mostly, just to have a manuscript accepted is such a wonderful and outstanding thing. And Peachtree and Carmen Dede found this manuscript, and they saw what it could be, and the team at Peachtree took a good story, and through the editors and the artists and the illustrator David Wenzel and the people who did the layout and the marketing, they took a good story and they made a great book. And it's with great humility that I accept this award, because I know that really I'm a small part of a great creation. So I thank Peachtree, all of you readers, the judges, and Penn for this great award. Thank you.
Gosh, I love Penn so much. The Penn Open Book Award is for an exceptional book-length work of literature by an author of color published in 2013. The judges this year are Catherine Chung, Randa Johar, and Monica Yoon. It gives me incredible pleasure to introduce my two friends, Ruth Ellen Coker for Domina Unblued and Nina McConaughey for Cowboys and East Indians. In Domina Unblued, Ruth Ellen Coker layers culture on culture, creating resonances that are both rigorous and sensuous. In Cowboys and East Indians, Nina McConaughey gives us Wyoming precisely the way we expect it, and in ways we don't. The experience is electrifying. Ruth Ellen and Nina, come to the stage.
Thank you. 78 seconds, I think. I wrote this down because this is an agoraphobe's nightmare. When I was a young poet, I dreamed of getting awards. In middle age, I've gotten over that. My early mentors were Vietnam vets who taught me to invest in the gravity of language. I'm honored to be recognized by an organization rooted in humanitarianism, such as PEN. And I ask tonight that you think of writers jailed worldwide, especially Ilham Tohti and his family. I accept this award in acknowledgement of the imprisoned and the enslaved. I thank my mother's spirit for inspiring me toward language, and my mentors for inspiring me toward the page. Most, I thank my ferocious partner, Paul Smith, who has shown me the value of failure and how the spirit rises. Thank you, PEN. Thank you, Tupelo Press, who somehow figured out what I was doing. Thank you, Paul. Thanks to those who write the good fight everywhere. Thank you.
As many of you know, I was raised and I still live in Wyoming, which is the least populated state in the Union. At the last census, the population was 93.1% white and 0.9% Asian. I live there because I can't imagine living in a place where I can't see the horizon, where I can't see mountains and vast open spaces and a sky that is a theater on a regular basis. But what I never do see is a reflection of myself. I never see other people of color. The only way I know how to see a reflection of myself is in my writing and in my work. It is in my art and in my fiction that I can contend with issues of identity and politics and race. PEN America, thank you. I'm honored by this prize. Sorry, I'm going to probably get a little teary. And the support that PEN gives to writers around the world and even to places that are incredibly low populated, like Wyoming. So thank you. You've literally changed my life. Literally, my adjunct load has gone down because of this pen. So thank you. And I'd like to thank the judges for choosing a somewhat unknown book about Indians in Wyoming to win. I also am grateful to my agent, Catherine Fawcett, who is Grace personified, and to 5 Chapters and Dave Daly for publishing this book of short stories. But mostly, I want to thank a huge thank you to my parents, Nimi and Patrick McConaughey, who, to use a Wyoming analogy, they are my snow fence in every sense of the word. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fiction writers engage with the truth imaginatively and idiosyncratically with a love for language and what it can do. So, of course, do nonfiction writers. To present a group of awards in nonfiction works, here's Andrew Solomon, the author of a number of provocative, comprehensive, and eclectic books that range across history, psychology, and culture, most recently, Far from the Tree. Please welcome Andrew.
Thank you. I stand before you as a writer and also as a member of the board of PEN, and I would echo what some of the last recipients said, which is that tonight we are celebrating mostly with authors who are able to be here with us on this stage, but thinking also of authors who are not able to be with anyone on any stage, who are instead suffering in quiet and silence. I'm going to present first the PEN E.O. Wilson Award for Literary Science Writing for a book of literary nonfiction on the subject of the physical or biological sciences, published in 2013. First, I'd like to recognize Dr. Edward O. Wilson and the E.O. Wilson Biodiversity Foundation, who are the donors for the PEN E.O. Wilson Award for Literary Science Writing. And I would also like to recognize the very distinguished panel of judges, Akiko Bush, Riva Galchen, and Eileen Pollock. And now I'd like to invite forward the winner of this year's prize, Dr. Carl Hart, and I'll read to you from the judges' citation. They said, "The lifetime of research that is the foundation for High Price stretches from the streets of Miami's Hood to the labs of Columbia University. In drawing on such a broad range of resources, neuroscientist Carl Hart demonstrates how personal experience and scientific study can inform and validate each other for a deeper understanding of human behavior and addiction. Dr. Hart's unflinching view of his past, along with his rigorous academic inquiry, make for a document of innovative thinking and profound humanity. Written with clarity, honesty, and courage, High Price offers a compelling argument to reconsider this country's policies on drug use, which have proved so ineffective not only from a legal standpoint, but from medical and social perspectives as well. Dr. Hart.
Some of you all may not know, but I got my PhD from the University of Wyoming. So with Nina and I being here tonight, Wyoming is a little whiter. I want to thank PEN for acknowledging High Price. This is truly an unimaginable honor to receive the Wilson Award. It's an honor for reasons that are just too plentiful to go into here tonight. But I will say that, like Wilson, I have a knack for arousing strong negative emotion in those who disagree with my interpretation of the evidence. So when I read the judge's citation, as you all just heard, I wanted to immediately call each and every one of them and thank them for understanding what I was trying to do. I wrote High Price because I am deeply disturbed by the lack of humanity when it comes to race, poverty, and drugs in this country. So to the judges, thank you for getting it. I am humble and eternally grateful for this prize. I have to also thank my family for allowing me to share with the world their private stories, even stories that sometimes place them in a less than favorable light. My wife, Robin, who puts up with me despite of myself, thank you for continuing to love me. And to my children, Malachi, Damon, Tobias, I apologize for the multiple unsolicited requests from strangers for information about our family. But no, I love you, and I'm doing my best to try to make this world a better place. To Claire Wattell, my editor, my psychologist, my friend, without you, I seriously doubt that I'd be standing here accepting this award. You turned me into a writer, and that includes all of the anxieties and neuroses that they have. you believed in this book and in me when I didn't even do so, so thank you. I have to also thank Heather Drucker. She's the publicist for this book. She embarrassed me consistently or continuously because when we would go out and promote the book in TV shows in the green room, there were other people in there, and she'd make me practice over and over what I was going to say. So thank you, Heather. I have to thank Maya Salovich. She taught me how to tell a story. She kept me on pace. She helped me to explain complicated scientific information to a general readership, so thank you. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the American taxpayers for their support of government programs that contributed to my physical and intellectual development. You see, I am a child of welfare, and without such humane programs, I doubt it. I seriously doubt that I would be standing before you here tonight. So thank you all.
Congratulations to Dr. Hart. And now I'd like to present the PEN Diamonstein-Spielvogel Award for the Art of the Essay, for a book of essays published in 2013 that exemplifies the dignity and esteem the essay form imparts to literature. The award is made possible by the tremendous generosity of Barbara Lee Diamonstein-Spielvogel and Carl Spielvogel. And I would like to recognize another panel of distinguished judges, Jeff Dyer, Stanley Fish, Ariel Levy, and Cheryl Strayed. And now I will invite up the winner of this year's prize, James Wolcott, for Critical Mass, and I will read to you from his citation. The judges wrote, "It is difficult to know what to admire more. James Wolcott's panoramic and encyclopedic variety. He writes on a huge canvas with a cast of characters numbering in the thousands, or the precise structuring of individual sentences that can be Swiftian in their tendency to go on and be chock full of names, places, put-downs, bric-a-brac, all wrapped in a contagious pleasure in the fecundity of language, or Wildian in their concise and wicked performance of precision bombing. When he says about critic Manny Farber that he always packed his pieces with rock salt so that the spray of his densely packed sentences left a wide pockmark, he could well be writing about himself. When he concludes a comparison of Edgar Allan Poe and Alfred Hitchcock by declaring that ravens belong on both men's shoulders, he could be perched forevermore. He simultaneously conjures up a comic, surrealistic image, makes a serious literary critical claim, and teases us with the echo of Poe's Nevermore, itself an echo, which is turned quite marvelously into an assertion of timeless value. And when he says of Michael Mann's movie Heat that each character carries an abyss inside, he invites us to recall in juxtaposition the haunted faces of Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Val Kilmer, and Jon Voight, faces that are the real plot of Mann's masterpiece. And what can we say about a critic who can at one moment be telling us about Updike's hard fist of meaning, and in the next moment convincing us that there is meaning to be found and savored in the Doris Day Rock Hudson comedies, which he says have kept their crease and slant? Well, we can say that he is a master of his craft and a more than worthy recipient of the PEN Diamonstein-Spielvogel Award for the Art of the Essay.
Thank you. I am not dabbing on false modesty when I say this is an award and an honor that I never anticipated being nominated for, much less standing here and accepting on this beautiful Manhattan evening. My thanks go out to my editor at Doubleday, the great Jerry Howard, for initiating this collection and never losing faith in critical mass, even while I was engaged in the usual bemoaning and verbal hand-wringing that is like a second language to us literary types. I can't fully express my appreciation as well to the PEN organization, the jury panel, and to Barbara Lee Diamondstein and Carl Spielvogel, who founded this award. And let's be honest, critics don't tend to be the most popular people in the cafeteria. So any award for criticism is welcome for any critic who can hang in there for the long haul. My wife, Laura Jacobs, here tonight, is an essayist and critic herself, so we go through all of this together while our cats remain oblivious, as cats do. Asked why he didn't take up painting later in life, the American philosopher Rust Cole replied in episode 7 of True Detective, "Life's barely long enough to get good at one thing, so be careful what you get good at." For me, careful had nothing to do with it. From the first time I read Norman Mailer, being a writer was the only thing I wanted to be and the only thing I wanted to do. I couldn't picture any other future. It's worked out better than I ever could have imagined, even in my jazziest dreams. And this is the capper. Thank you.
One of the wonderful and striking things about PEN is how it encourages connections and community between, and some of the presenters have mentioned this, between present and absent authors, between established authors and new authors, between authors and the world around them, which is also, of course, the world around us. Our next presenter tonight, Barbara Kingsolver, has a special interest in the world around us, one that has been in evidence throughout her career. All of you, no doubt, know of her and her work, so in lieu of giving her a traditional introduction, I'll just mention a few surprising facts, some or all of them true. She's worked on 5 different continents, which leaves only 2. You can speculate privately which 2 she has not worked on among yourselves. I don't know if she'll confirm or deny. She raises Icelandic sheep, or has raised them on her farm in Appalachia, and she will be coming to the stage now to present the Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction. Please welcome Barbara Kingsolver.
Antarctica, Australia, and yes, I still have the sheep. Thank you. Thank you, PEN. I'm Barbara Kingsolver, the founder of the PEN Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction. It's awarded every other year to the author of an unpublished first novel that exemplifies what we and what the judges feel is beautiful and courageous writing about matters of serious social consequence. This is meant to be a career founding award for a writer because it does go to an unpublished first novel, and it comes with a $25,000 prize and a publishing contract with our publishing partner, Algonquin Books, to whom we are also very grateful. I thank our judges for this prize cycle, Terry McMillan, Nancy Pearl, and Algonquin editor Kathy Porres. And I'll tell you a little bit about the novel. The winning novel is about an earnest young Air Force drone pilot in Nevada whose actions cause collateral damage on the other side of the world. And it's about a sweet math geek who makes algorithms for his Wall Street employer that allow them to profit from collateral damage on the other side of the world. It takes an extraordinarily imaginative and brave novelist to create a story that draws the lines of connection between characters like these two, and to ask the difficult questions he asks about corruption and culpability. The novel is called And West is West. It will come out next year, and the author is Ron Childress.
Well, thank you, Barbara, for founding the Penn Bellwether Prize and for your insights into my manuscript, which I am currently in the process of editing, and that is intense. Terry McMillan, Nancy Pearl, Kathy Porres, thank you for bringing my manuscript out of obscurity. An extra thanks to Kathy, my editor at Algonquin Books. Sam Stoloff at Francis Golden, thank you for initiating what I hope will be a long and productive partnership. And thank you, everybody at Penn, Paul, Ariel, Sarah, for making this such a wonderful experience. And thanks to the previous winners of the Bellwether for their support. And I really only have one other person to thank, and it's my first reader, Sandra Arkin, and who never wavers in her support of my writing and always gives me the space and time in which to do it. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, and congratulations again, Ron. If you've looked at a newspaper over the past 6 months, you're probably in the minority. You've also probably seen how much sports influences all aspects of contemporary culture. It's a springboard for certain discussions, a laboratory for social change, both for better and for worse, Commissioner Goodell. So tonight, to present 2 awards connected to the world of sports, please welcome Joseph O'Neill, the author of such superb books as Netherland and most recently, The Dog.
Good evening. It is a great honor to be here amongst such a distinguished collection of writers, and strikingly sober collection of writers as well. But the first award I'm concerned with is the Penn ESPN Award for Literary Sports Writing to honor a non-fiction book on the subject of sports, published in 2013. The award is made possible by ESPN, and the judges were Joel Drucker, Chad Harback, and Jackie McMullen. And I'm delighted to announce that the winners are Mark Fainaru-Wada and Steve Fainaru for League of Denial. League of Denial is such a compelling and important book, one the National Football League fervently hopes you never read, because it so meticulously and convincingly connects serious brain injuries to the game of football. Authors Steve Fainaru and Mark Fainaru-Wada unveil the manner in which the NFL, America's most powerful and profitable professional sports league, consistently fail to acknowledge their role in minimizing the serious health risks their players have been exposed to for decades. With exhaustive reporting and brilliant prose, the authors also expose the unseemly tactics of competing medical entities who jockey for the right to study the brains of deceased NFL players, often within hours of their passing. There was a time when concussions were merely dismissed as temporary and harmless setbacks, a case of football players having their bell rung. League of Denial has shredded that myth.
So this is quite heady for both of us to be here amongst sort of the literary world and literary giants. We're really incredibly honored to be sitting next to Dave Anderson, a legend in our business. And we're really grateful, obviously, to the Penn folks for this award. We have a few people to thank. Scott Waxman, most notably, is our agent, who, when we came to him and said we wanted to do an investigative narrative about the NFL, not only did not blink, but immediately dove into action the way he does and got us a contract with Crown Archetype, who is the next folks we need to thank. And we want to thank Mauro DiPreta, our editor at Crown, who was behind the book from the very beginning, and especially Tammy Blake, the publicist who we like to call our goddess of publicity, who got us on basically every show you can imagine and left us terrified in the wake of that. Never dealing with Stephen Colbert is the nightmare nobody ever wants to deal with. So we also need to thank our families. The kind of reporting that we do is not possible without the support of our families who endure the torture of dealing with us, talking about the same story and the same terror of dealing with it every day. I want to thank my wife, Nicole, and my kids, Max and Ella. And speaking of family, I need to thank my brother here, who is the best reporter I know and tolerated all of my neuroses through this project. We also want to thank the families, largely, of some of the folks who suffered from brain damage and have died prematurely, particularly Mike Webster's family, the Hall of Fame Center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who gave so much time to us and opened themselves up. And lastly, for me, we also want to thank the NFL, of course, because the League of Denial, for providing us with so much fodder. And now I'm going to cede my time to my older and wiser brother.
12 seconds left. Yeah. I've composed a poem to the NFL. I just wanted to thank my wife, Maureen Fan, who's a wonderful journalist and writer in her own right and contributed greatly to the research on our book, and our son, Will. And Mark and I also wanted to thank our editors, Chris Buckle and Dwayne Bray. When we talk about what we do at ESPN, many people don't realize that ESPN has what is probably the largest investigative reporting unit of any media organization in the United States. And that organization, just in the past few months, has showed how academic institutions have covered up sexual assault investigations, how the PGA has used its nonprofit status to achieve something on the order of $200 million in tax breaks, and then just the other day showed how the Baltimore Ravens football team lobbied the NFL for lenient treatment for its player Ray Rice, even after they were made aware of the contents of the video in which he punched his wife, his girlfriend, who became his wife, in an elevator. And the League of Denial could not have been done without the support of ESPN and our editors, and we're just so grateful for that. Probably the most common question that I got while we were doing the book was, what's it like to write a book with your brother? And the question was always asked in a way where people almost implied that we sort of had like bunk beds, and we climbed down from our bunk beds and then wrote alternating chapters. And the truth is that to have a brother who is not only such a wonderful journalist and wonderful writer, but also such an incredible friend and incredible person, it's just so rewarding, and it made this really one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. So thanks very much.
It is now my honor to present the PEN ESPN Lifetime Achievement Award for Literary Sports Writing, presented to a writer whose body of work represents an exceptional contribution to the field. This award, too, is made possible by ESPN. Acknowledgement is due to the judges, Kostya Kennedy, David Rosenthal, and John Shulian. And our winner is Dave Anderson.
There was a lot of applause there. I must have a lot of family members here. But thank you very much. And also, I'd like to start off by saying that when I found out I was the winner of this award for literary sports writing, I said to myself that literary is not a word that I've usually had in my field of dreams. You know, when you're in the newspaper business, you don't think of yourself as a literary writer. You're just trying to make that day's deadline. And as if you make it, that's literary enough. Every newspaper I've ever worked for, as long as you made the deadline, you were literary. But I'd like to thank, too, the PEN people and certainly ESPN for sponsoring this award. The PEN and ESPN are kind of the two ends of our business. PEN is what it once was in newspapers, and ESPN is what it is now in television. So it covers the whole world. But the important thing to me is that it's a shame that, or one of the important things, it's a shame that PEN didn't give this award years ago, because there were so many great sports writers then. And Red Smith, Jimmy Cannon, Bill Hines, Arthur Daly, Jim Murray. I'm sure some of you remember those names and you remember what they wrote. And those are the reason, those guys were the reason that I'm here tonight, because I grew up reading them and wanting to do what they did. I never thought I'd be as good as them, and I'm probably not. But I still got an award that they deserved, and it's a shame that it's only been given out in the last 4 years. The appealing thing to me is that the three previous winners were Roger Angell of the New Yorker, Dan Jenkins, the great golf and football writer, Frank DeFord from Sports Illustrated and HBO. And those are the guys that I always read as colleagues. I mean, I grew up, I was in the business before Frank DeFord, you know. And now here I am getting an award that he got and Roger got and Dan Jenkins got. And to me, it's like being the fourth face on Mount Rushmore. The only sad moment of this night is that my wife, who passed away in March, isn't here naturally, but she would have said, "Hey, Dave, what is this literary stuff? You know, what do you mean literary? You know, you're my husband. You can't be literary." So, but the best part, really, when you think about it, of this award, is that to get it, you have to be alive. So apparently I am. Thank you.
I wanted to just echo Tiffany's earlier announcement that all of tonight's books are available, and now that you're finding out how great they are, go get them. And in addition to that, I want to echo what Mr. Anderson just said, which is go seek out sports writers of the past across all eras, because as we saw tonight, it's a window into American culture in general. So go find them all. They're all at your local bookstore. Next, I would like to welcome the poet Elizabeth Alexander, whose works include Antebellum Dream Book, American Sublime, and Praise Song for the Day, which was read at President Obama's first inauguration. That poem includes the line, "We encounter each other in words." So here she is to encounter other authors in words. Elizabeth Alexander.
Well, hello, community, all. It's wonderful to be together. The first award that I'm going to present is the PEN Jacqueline Bograd-Weld Award for Biography, for a distinguished biography published in 2013. The award was made possible by Rodman L. Drake and Jacqueline Bograd-Weld. The judges were James Atlas, Lisa Cohen, and Wendy Gimbel. The winner of this prize is Linda Level for holding on to Upside Down, and I'll read from the judge's citation. For over 2 decades in working on this biography of Marianne Moore, Linda Level mined elusive veins rich with treasure. Now she is surfaced with a gem polished to brilliance, holding on to Upside Down. First, a meditation on the nature of contradiction. Level treats the paradoxes in Marianne Moore's life with tremendous respect and tact. Moore willingly inhabited a prison of devotion to her mother, and against all odds turned her surrender into a form of freedom, writing poetry of intense originality. Level's own fierce intelligence gives this biography its rigor, but her compassion is responsible for her unwillingness to categorize or pathologize her complex subject: the brilliant modernist, the astute editor, the spinster in the tricorn hat who wrote ditties for soda pop sales, the flamboyant eccentric who courted celebrity while wrapping herself in the cape of self-effacement. One could say of Level's achievement what Moore wrote of her own, and these lines from Marianne Moore: "If you will tell me why the fen appears impassable, I then will tell you why I think that I can get across it if I try." Linda Level.
Thank you. It's been more than 2 months since I received news that I won this award, and it still hasn't sunk in yet. I feel deeply honored for this award. My thanks go to PEN for recognizing biography in this way, and to the 3 judges who've been named but deserve naming again: James Atlas, Lisa Cohen, and Wendy Gimble. Thank you. I feel humbled to be included among the biographies that they included on their short list and long list. I've read a number of them, and they're truly excellent, so I do feel humble. I wish to thank my editor, Jonathan Galassi, for his unceasing encouragement throughout the long writing process. I'd also like to thank my publicist at FSG, Lachen Shivers, who I think is here tonight. I thank other members of the FSG staff for turning my book into what I believe is a very handsome volume. My thanks also go to my agent, Susan Rabiner. She believed in the book when it was still an amorphous mass of facts, and she helped me turn it into a story, and I will forever be grateful to her for that. I'm indebted to the deceased members of Marianne Moore's family for writing such colorful, witty letters that kept me entertained during the research process. And I thank the living members of her family for their support and generosity, and especially their open-mindedness. My book is dedicated to my husband, Brooks Garner, who is here tonight and has been here every step of the way. Thank you.
The next award is the Penn Volker Award for Poetry, presented to a poet whose distinguished and growing body of work to date represents a notable and accomplished presence in American literature. The judges were Peg Boyers, Toy Derricott, and Rowan Ricardo Phillips, and the winner is Frank Bedart. And I'll again read from the judge's citation. Throughout his career, Frank Bedart has produced poems marked by extreme states of consciousness. Many of these poems are built around characters drawn from myth or newspapers or movies or literature, others from his own family history. But whatever persona he inhabits, Bedart has been a poet of roiling intensity, singularly unafraid of excess. And there precisely has been the great achievement of his work. He has found many different ways to contain excess without neutralizing it, creating living expressions of a consciousness moving through guilts and unmastered desires without resorting to easy resolutions. A model to younger poets who marvel at his ability to encompass both rage and tenderness, he has been exemplary not only in tackling a wide range of lyric forms, but in boldly investing in long narrative poems. Now in his mid-70s, Bedart is working at the height of his powers, and his recent volume, Metaphysical Dog, seems to many poets the best book he has ever written. The legacy of his original, consistently powerful work will be felt in American letters for years to come. His work is brave and uncompromising, one perfect, mighty poem at a time. Amongst poets, and this is me, he is regarded with that rare combination. We respect him, and we also love him. Mr. Bedart was not feeling well enough to travel this evening for the ceremony, so he's asked that I accept this award on his behalf, and he says thank you. Thanks.
PEN rewards those artists who create books, as we've seen, but it also turns its eyes toward the stage. Our next presenter, Elizabeth Streb, has been instrumental for decades in shaping our sense of stage events, what constitutes a work, what the dividing lines are between athletic events and theater events, how risks in performance move through an audience. I don't know if she's going to fly in or swing in tonight or just walk up on the stage. I leave that to her. But please welcome Elizabeth Streb to present awards in the world of theater. Just walking.
The group of awards I have the honor of presenting are the PEN Laura Pels International Foundation for Theater Awards, honoring an emerging American playwright, an American playwright in mid-career, and a master American dramatist. These awards are made possible by the Laura Pels International Foundation for Theater. The judges were myself, Elizabeth Streb, John Lithgow, and Maria Tucci. The first of the three awards, the award for an emerging American playwright, and the winner is Laura Marks. We are pleased to honor the work of Laura Marks, a recent graduate of Juilliard's writing program. The youthful Miss Marks has written 4 plays. 2 of them, Mine and Bethany, have already been produced extensively to critical acclaim, and the New York production of Bethany was a nominee for the 2013 Lucille Lortel Outstanding Play Awards. Miss Marks chooses her subjects fearlessly. No other playwright has so forthrightly taken on the complex emotions of a mother's childbearing and postpartum panic, as she did in Mine. And Bethany is a horror story rooted in absolute reality, portraying the appalling toll exacted from an unremarkable middle-class woman caught in the vice grip of today's harsh economic conditions. The judges were dazzled by Miss Marks' command of dialogue, character, and structure. With the skill of an artist far beyond her years, she knows how to make an audience desperate to find out what comes next. Laura, would you like to approach the podium?
Well, this is cool. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was so lovely to hear. And I'm so grateful to you and the other judges and to the PEN Foundation and the Laura Pels Foundation and Laura Pels herself, who called me on the phone to tell me that I had won this, which blew my mind. This support and encouragement that something like this represents, it means the world to a writer. I'm sure everyone in this room knows that. And speaking of support and encouragement, I have to mention 2 people who are here tonight who are probably more responsible for my continued mental health than anyone. I'm speaking, of course, of my spouse and my agent. My agent, Jessica Amato, who is marvelous, and my husband, who snuck in the back about 20 minutes ago wearing a banjo. I'm so glad you're here. He's a really high-quality human being. And, and we have these two girls, these two wonderful daughters who just cracked my heart open. And for whatever reason, when they came on the scene, that's when I discovered what I really wanted to say as a writer. So I have to mention them, but I can't really do justice to that in 90 seconds. I have, of course, all the usual suspects to thank, a wonderful supportive family and remarkable teachers, chief among them Christopher Drang and Marcia Norman at Juilliard. But there's one more person I should mention. He's not here tonight, and honestly, I don't even know him all that well, but his name is J.T. Rogers. He's a wonderful playwright, and I know him a bit. We're both part of this kind of playwrights collective called New Dramatists, and he said to me one day, "Is anybody nominating you for the PEN Award?" And I said, "I don't think so." And he said, "Well, I'm going to." And you know, I don't know if you all know this, but it's not a really simple thing to nominate someone. You have to write a very involved letter and put together a dossier of documents. And I'm sure it took him a little while to do this. And we had to email back and forth. And I was very sort of moved and humbled by this, that this guy, I mean, he's just a writer. It's not his job to advocate for other writers. Oh, wait, of course it is. And I started to think about the fact that throughout my career, virtually every good thing that has happened for me has been a direct or indirect result of the generosity of another writer. And so it is his job to advocate for other writers, and it's my job, and it's our job, and it's the job of the PEN Foundation. And so for me, this award is, among other things, a really beautiful reminder for me of the responsibility that I bear to be not just a writer, but an advocate for writers. So thank you.
The next award is the award for an American playwright in mid-career. The winner is Donald Margulies. Donald has already produced enough plays to fill the quota of any playwright's career. But judging from his unflagging creative energy, he has many more plays ahead of him. For this reason, and for the high quality of his varied work, the judges have chosen to honor him at mid-career in memorable plays such as Sight Unseen, Collected Stories, Time Stands Still, and the Pulitzer Prize-winning Dinner with Friends. He has explored the strains on human relationships wrought by ambition, self-doubt, the loss of integrity, the loss of love, the passage of time, and the persistence of a traumatic memory. But if his work grapples with the serious business of life, it is shot through with sly, literate humor, and it is far from grim. And though all the plays listed above are essentially realistic works, he loves to surprise us. He is capable of fantastical yarn spinning in Shipwrecked and Entertainment, surrealistic allegory, The Model Apartment, and show-stopping theatrics, The Lohman Family Picnic. Margulies is a respected citizen of the American theater while he works in other literary genres. He is deeply committed to the stage. He nurtures a new generation of playwrights as a professor of English and theater studies at Yale, and not least among his many attributes, as a dramatist, actors simply love to perform his work. Please welcome Donald to the podium.
Thank you. That is a beautiful citation. Thank you for that. You know, I'm mindful tonight of one of my earliest champions in the theater, Robert Anderson, the late Robert Anderson. And he took me into his office when I was about 20 years old, and I saw tagged to the wall a little index card right over his desk, and it said, "Nobody asked you to be a playwright." I think of that often. But I think that one of the extraordinary things about playwrights is that the work is not complete when it's on the page. What we provide is merely a blueprint for actors. That is when the work becomes fully realized. And I think that one of the reasons why I've loved doing this for so long is that I love actors. I love working with actors. I love forging these relationships with actors. I have my favorite actors. And it's one of the great pleasures of my life to put on a show. It amuses me greatly that I'm being honored at mid-career just as I turn 60, which I find incredibly sweet and damn encouraging. I mean, it's certainly optimistic, and I'm flattered by that, truly, and I'm tickled. But I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge my darling wife, Lynn Street, who has been with me from pre-career, and she'll be with me at post-career, which could happen Thursday night. But thank you very much, Penn. Thank you to Elizabeth and your fellow judges. And this is really just a wonderful, delightful event. Thank you.
The final award is the award for a Master American Dramatist. The winner is David Rabe. In recognition of his body of work, he will be presented with a signed limited edition of Eugene O'Neill's collection of plays titled Strange Interlude. We recall the harrowing experience of first encountering Rabe's plays some 40 years ago. In our opinion, they have withstood the test of time and will remain a powerful record of American life for decades to come. Rabe's early works were produced under the aegis of Joseph Papp's public theater during the 1970s. More than any other writer, he has come to define that extraordinary decade of bold, creative achievement at the public. The great Rabe War trilogy, The Basic Training of Pavlo Hummel, Streamers, and the Tony-winning Sticks and Bones present a searing vision of the Vietnam War years, unmatched by any other playwright. But the trauma of Vietnam has not been his only subject. A few years later, Hurly Burly arrived on Broadway, offering up a mordant, unflinching portrait of the stoned-out enemy of Hollywood in the 1980s, reflecting the uneasy state of society at large. Recent revivals of Rabe's plays have confirmed their craft, compassion, and staying power. He resides firmly in the ranks of Master American Dramatists. David, could you approach the podium, please?
I'm just going to read what I have here. It's short, but a couple of minutes. A career award like this suggests time automatically, so time is going to permeate my remarks a bit. And so I want to first acknowledge my very first agents, Jim Bowen and Ellen Newwald. Jim took on my early plays when they came to him over the transom, which was the term for unsolicited manuscripts at that time. When he retired a year or so later, he passed beyond to Ellen, who was my agent for the next 25 years. I also feel an enormous and lasting gratitude to Joe Papp. My Vietnam plays that he produced, along with a few other, Boom Boom Room and a few others, well, the Vietnam plays had been rejected everywhere. So I doubt they would have been done without him. I also want to note my current agent, Joyce Katay, and Scott Elliott, who is now producing and directing my play, Sticks and Bones, at the New Group, for its first major revival in New York in 40 years. A few months ago, I was visiting a friend in the hospital. She was quite ill, and looking back on her 34 years as a history teacher at a well-respected school, prep school, her reputation was one of generosity, high energy, love, and contagious excitement for her subject. At a certain point, considering all those years in a classroom in front of waves of adolescent faces, she said something like, "What an odd life, or what an odd way to spend one's life." As we talked, I said that I suspected that whatever activity we poured our life into might well appear that way in her circumstances. I confided that I sometimes find myself thinking that way about the hours I spend alone in a room writing. She didn't see the equation, as if what I did had to be very different, and yet I could see her thinking about it. I didn't say how I'd come to suspect that the stalling that sometimes delays me getting into the room had to do with the fact that I now understood that once there and engaged fully, I will find another day gone when I emerge. And yet the appetite to write, which goes back in my life, well, in a sense, to the very beginning, like certainly at the end of high school and college, beginning of college, continues, and I consider myself very, very lucky to be able to follow it. A day without writing, whether for the theater or in fiction, seems incomplete to me, if not impoverished. I've been a proud member of PEN, or belonged to PEN for many, many years, and now I'm very grateful to PEN for bestowing this award on my time in those many rooms, and the work that I've done and the work that I hope to do. So many thanks.
Congratulations again to all three playwrights. I wanted to clarify one thing for Donald Margulies. The award comes with a guarantee that tonight is the exact midpoint of your career, if you'll look. So you can figure that out and just plan accordingly. One of the flagship awards tonight is the PEN Saul Bellow Award for Achievement in American Fiction. It's named, of course, for Saul Bellow, who documented American cultural and intellectual life through his fiction over the course of a towering half-century. The award, which carries a stipend of $25,000, goes to a living American author whose scale of achievement of fiction, considered over the course of an entire career, places him or her in the highest rank of American literary achievement. This award is made possible by the generous support of Michael Moritz and Harriet Heyman. This year, the award was judged by three esteemed writers, Edwidge Danticat, E.L. Doctorow, and Zadie Smith. And at this point, I would like to welcome the third of those, Zadie Smith, to the stage to read the citation and present the award.
Hi. I'm Zadie. I'd like to thank first my fellow judges who made this process such a pleasure and so drama-free. This is a citation for Louise Erdrich. Some writers work a small piece of land. Louise Erdrich is not one of those writers. Her work has an awesome capaciousness. Each person is a world. For Erdrich, the tale of the individual necessarily leads to the tale of the family, and families lead to nations, while the wound of a national injustice is passed down through the generations, expressing itself in intimate deformations, a heady intertwining of the national and the personal. Yet despite the often depressingly familiar, repetitive nature of so much human business, Erdrich's eye is always fresh and her sentences never less than lyrical. As we hear from the character Lipsha Morrissey in her stereophonic 1984 debut, Love Medicine, so many things in the world have happened before, but it's like they never did. Every new thing that happens to a person, it's a first. To be a son to a father was like that. In that night, I felt expansion, as if the world were branching out in shoots and growing faster than the eye could see. Everything under the sun is new to Erdrich. The secrets that run in families, the arrival of flowers in spring, the steady accumulation of births and deaths. She both attests to these natural cycles and describes our unique predicaments within them. Never a generalist, her work is always local and precise. As Faulkner had it, and I've never said this word out loud before, in his Yoknapatawpha, so North Dakota has, for 30 years, provided a home for Erdrich's restless imagination. And yet, what a vast embrace is this author's. Pursuing the seeds of her own lineage, she's drawn comprehensive portraits of Native American life, followed German immigrants in cramped boats across the Atlantic, and delved inwards right back to conception in her wonderful non-fiction account of childbearing, The Blue Jay's Dance. Read in full, she dazzles as a writer of all times and all places, following those branching shoots of story wherever they sprout. She's a writer only America could have produced, committed to the extraordinary project of capturing a complex land and a various people in their own voices and in hers. Please join me in congratulating Louise Erdrich, the winner of the Penn Saul Bellow Award for Achievement in American Fiction.
Bonjour, ni Gedok. Hello, fellow writers. Nimiquechueananik Penn. I'm thanking Penn. We all thank Penn. And I'm also very moved by your presence here, all of you. I want to thank those who established and have kept this award going. And in particular, Philip Roth, who's very devoted to how this award turns out. Thank you, distinguished judges, Eyal Doctorow, Edwidge Donica, and Zadie Smith. Thank you for that marvelous citation. An award of this resonance really causes a person to look back through what I've written and think about what I was trying to do. Well, so far, I just turned 62, so far. And, I looked through everything, and the main thing I could tell that I was trying to do was never to be uplifting. I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to create a sort of false buoyancy in my work, either through being overly buoyant or through killing everyone off. It also creates its own sort of buoyancy. And I tried, in Saul Bellows' words, to stick to what was true and necessary. And he said that he had an inner editor who told him what to do. I have a marvelous editor whom I'd like to thank for that, Terry Carton. And I would also like to thank someone who's worked with me for various publishers, and that is Jane Byrne. She's been alongside me every step of the way. But Bellows' exuberance and his almost manic joy in language and in his writing came from exactly who he was, him writing from exactly who he was. It was radical for him to write at the time as the son of Russian Jewish parents and write about Chicago. So in accepting this award, I accept it as the first woman, the first Ojibwe woman to be given this award, and the first mother. And I mention these things because these are the things that make me who I am and where all of my work comes from. My 4 daughters are here, and this is a great moment for me because you are here. I want to thank you, each one of you, for trying very hard not to let me see you as you rolled your eyes when I was so distracted I didn't know where I was, and for working with me every step of the way. My daughters have become my first readers, and tough they are. But you have also given me an eye, let me live vicariously sometimes through the things you do. You've given me an eye into a whole comic world that would have been beyond my reach. So I thank every one of you. Miigwech Bizendawayek. Thank you for this award.
Thank you to Zadie, and congratulations. Now, the first order of business for Louise as the Bella recipient is to help with another order of business, which is helping to present the next award. So remember at the beginning when we mentioned that there would be some suspense involved tonight. We have now arrived at the moment when that suspense will be discharged in the form of the Penn Robert W. Bingham Prize for Debut Fiction. So for the first time in the history of this award, we've delayed naming the prize's winner until tonight. That's what the bit of fake stage business was before about the accountants and the locked briefcase, and they would bring it over. That wasn't really true, but the winner is now on site in a secret location. I mean, the nominees are all here, but the identity of the winner is here in a secret location. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Bingham. You're going to see a little bit about each of the books and each of the nominees, and then Louise is going to help us to present tonight's winner. The Bingham Award goes to a fiction writer whose debut work, whether a first novel or a first collection of stories, represents distinguished literary achievement and suggests great promise. So the judges who helped decide this year's winner were Charles Bach, Jonathan Dee, Fiona Mizell, and Karen Shepard. Last night, also for the first time in the history of this award, the nominees read at KGB. They all read, most of them read from their work. One wasn't able to be with us, but we're going to see slides. That's KGB bar, one flight. And so just as I read, what I'm also going to do is name the 5 nominees and their works and their publishers as you look at the images, and I'd like to ask each of them, if they're here, to stand, and then at the end, we'll get applause for all, and then we'll find out. Stand as you're mentioned. Anthony Mara for A Constellation of Vital Phenomena, published by Hogarth. Please stand. Saeed Sairafi Zeta for Brief Encounters with the Enemy, published by the Dial Press. Ian Stansel for Everybody's Irish, published by 5 Chapters Books. Sean Vestal for Godforsaken Idaho, published by Little A New Harvest. And Hanya Yanagihari for The People in the Trees, published by Doubleday. Congratulations again to all of the nominees. And now, Louise Erdrich will return to the microphone to present the 2014 Bingham Award.
All right. I'm going to read the citation, and if you start getting an idea of who it is, please hold your applause till the very end when I'll announce the winner. This book ranges not only across time, but across genres: historical fiction, fantasy, contemporary realism, all executed with the sure hand of a versatile and gifted writer. The stories in this debut collection deal in religious and spiritual conundrums. Perhaps more impressively, they dare to charge into the well-trodden arena of the hapless male and make that subject fresh again. In exposing the shaggy souls of his beleaguered central characters, this author's eye is as sharp for their goodness as for their weakness, never letting anyone off the hook, but maintaining and generating compassion for the way we bumble through our lives. These stories aren't just moving, they're also very funny. Funny for their pathos, in other words, funny for all the right reasons. Vestal doesn't go for the cheap laugh. Oh, there, I gave it away. But for the sustained comedy of people trying and failing and trying again. With real pleasure, the judges award this year's Penn Bingham Prize to Sean Vestal's Godforsaken Idaho.
What? Standing here and looking at all of you, I'm reminded of why I became a writer in the first place, which was to avoid talking. I don't know what to say about this. This is such an honor to be here with so many writers who I admire, who I have read for years, trying to do something in the vein that they did. So thank you to Penn, thank you to the judges. I'd like to say something about the other nominees. All of them, each of them, wrote amazing, beautiful books. And one of the great parts of this process has been what Penn has done for those books and for us in helping to give them to a wider audience, to bring more attention to them. I'd like to thank my editor, Ed Park, the people at Little A. I'd like to thank Renee Zuckerbrot for all that she has done for me. I'd like to thank my friends in the Eastern Washington University MFA program, and my wife, Amy, and my son, Cole, who, when he was born 7 years ago, I had thought for most of my life that I would not be able to be a writer when I was a parent, because I had this silly idea that what I needed was time. And his birth changed everything for me. It made me a larger person, and it made me a better writer. And so I'm thankful to him, to my family. Thank you again.
Congratulations again to Sean. And everybody here, please mark your calendars and be sure to return in the future when Sean, the winner of a future Bella Prize, will present a future Bingham. Okay, so the night is not young, but it's not old either. I'd figure it for maybe late 30s, something like that. And that means that it's time for me to introduce Suzanne Nossel, the Executive Director of Penn. And please give her your complete attention and also your thanks for helping to make all aspects of tonight possible.
I want to thank our colleagues here at the New School and all the generous donors and partners who endowed these awards, especially those who've joined us tonight: Joan and Clara Bingham, Kathleen Beckett, John Walsh of ESPN, Barbara Lee Diamondstein, Carl Spielvogel, Lily Tuck, James and Kathy Stone, Hal Witt, Phyllis Naylor, and Barbara King-Solver. Tonight is a celebration of creative achievement, but it's also a celebration of community. When they gather to honor the best movie producers, musical acts, or Broadway shows, the Oscars, Grammys, and Tonys party on a grand scale. Tonight, we're missing the limousines, the designer dresses, and the dance numbers. But there's a palpable feeling in the room and on this stage that we come together not as an industry, but as a literary community. a community whose exaltation and excellence is grounded in our shared values and in writer-to-writer solidarity. Our community transcends genre, geography, and generation. It nurtures young talent and helps members in need. We see this community in the tireless trio of judges, E.L. Doctorow, Zadie Smith, and Edwidge Dondicat, who spent a whole summer reading and rereading to select Louise Erdrich as this year's Bellow winner. We see it in Louise, who on a night devoted to recognizing her career achievement, chose to present the Bingham Award to Sean Vestal, a writer whose career is about to take off. We see it in the Translation Awards, where distinguished masters took the time to ferret out the young linguists who will make international literature available to all of our children. And we see it in our own awards staff, the remarkable Paul Morris and Ariel Anima. They are the hub of this community, and they have done so much to make it grow and thrive. I want to thank them and the entire Penn staff and board for this wonderful night. Most of Penn's high honors are given out here tonight in this room, but there are a few important prizes that we confer in the springtime. One of them is the Penn Barbara Goldsmith Freedom to Write Award. That award always goes to a writer in jail, punished for the crime of free expression. Over the years, 34 out of 37 award winners have been freed. It's a remarkable track record. But this year's winner is not one of the lucky ones. His name is Ilham Tohti. He's a scholar and economist, 44 years old, with 3 children. He's a member of the Chinese Uyghur minority population centered in Xinjiang province. He's a leader in Uyghur Penn. Believe it or not, there is a Uyghur Penn. So he's a member of the Penn community, of this community. In January, the security police came to his house. They ransacked it, and in front of his 2 young boys, they dragged him away under arrest. He was charged with separatism, a crime that his writings explicitly reject. His award in May was accepted by his 19-year-old daughter, Jauhar. I don't think anyone present will ever forget her getting up there and saying, "My father, Ilham Tohti, has used only one weapon in his struggle for the basic rights of Uyghurs in Xinjiang: words." A week ago tonight, Ilham Tohti was sentenced to life in prison. While we knew he'd be treated harshly, no one expected that. Liu Xiaobo's sentence, decried as an abomination all over the world, was just 11 years. Tohti's cruel sentence reminds us that the only thing more dangerous than being a courageous dissident in China is being a courageous dissident from a persecuted ethnic minority. When he was president of PEN America, Jerzy Kosinski spoke of writers as an intellectual, political, and moral force, a force powerful enough to threaten a police state. The Chinese so feared the power of Tohti's pen that they put him in prison for life. He's now being called Xinjiang's Mandela. I want to invite all of our extraordinary award winners and all of our judges and those in the audience to take a moment tonight to take a stand on behalf of PEN Award winner Ilham Tohti. Immediately after the ceremony, please join us right outside for a short candlelight vigil in his honor. Now that the Chinese have jailed him for his words, we must speak those words on his behalf. We begin tonight with Barbara Kingsolver and PEN President Peter Godwin, who will read a statement that Ilham Tohti has issued as he was hauled away. His voice, silenced by Beijing, must now be spoken and heard all over the globe. Thank you, and I'll see you outside on the sidewalk.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you to all of you, the audience, of course, and also to the presenters and to the awardees. This is proof of what people can do when they do have the freedom to write and to publish, and then their work makes it to you. There's a quote that people like to cite by Jean Cocteau that says, "The greatest masterpiece in literature is only a dictionary out of order." But let's never forget the authors who put them out of order. Long may they disarrange. Thank you, and we'll see you outside.